Hello and welcome to EDD 607C. This discussion is on the theory of improvement and driver diagrams, and this will help you with your upcoming assignment. In this class session, we will go over the theory of improvement and the dissertation in practice. And after this session, we'll be able to create a driver diagram based on your problem of practice and your inquiry questions. You will also work to apply the driver diagram to begin to think about and draft a theory of improvement. So we will actually begin with the theory of improvement. A theory of improvement is developed to articulate the hypothesis that you have about your inquiry questions, outline how changes in practice will lead to improvement, create a bridge between the theory and concepts that you have read about in your literature review to real life application, and answer the question, what can I introduce? What change can I introduce and why? So when you develop your theory of improvement, you will have a broad and diverse understanding of your problem of practice and how it can be solved. You want to consider all relevant stakeholders and experiences of others outside your immediate community or setting. So of course, if you're thinking about your school setting as your research site, you might want to think about what other schools in the district, what other districts in the county are doing. Have there been leading examples or best practices established, again, locally or nationally, or perhaps even internationally? Have there been failed experiments? Do you know of other practitioners or schools that have implemented something similar and it has not worked? Have others engaged in a cycle of continuous improvement? And has a similar solution been implemented, but in a different setting, perhaps not at a school or not at a school for your grades, that sort of thing? How can you learn from others? You will need to know the existing literature, and you will need to know other relevant resources. A theory of improvement answers the question, what will work to improve the problem? How do you see change in practice that is sparking improvement? A theory of improvement also provides for you a roadmap from analyzing your problem of practice to tackling the problem during the testing phase of your change ideas, which we will talk about a little bit later in this presentation. Large and small goals for change play an important part in the focus of your work and can articulate discrete action to take. So at this point in the process, do not think that a goal is too large or too small to be part of your kind of brainstorming and preparation practice. At this point, let's still include everything. We will begin to narrow and hone what we're thinking about, what we want to do, the changes that we want to implement, the changes that we are looking to see as outcomes. But at this point, let's not rule anything out. And when you're developing your theory of improvement, you need to consider where the areas of influence are that can move the needle to improve the overall aim. And again, we'll talk about aims in just a little bit. And what are the smaller events and actions that can increase the outcomes you seek? So again, let's not rule out anything, even if you think it might be too small at this point. So you have an assignment of a driver diagram, and a driver diagram is developed to visually map how systems function and consolidate your relevant thoughts, theories, and approaches to improvement. The driver diagram will be refined over time. Again, there's that term of refining. We will talk about refining, revisiting a lot during this class. You will the driver diagram will help you develop as you continue to learn and understand your problem of practice. The driver diagram will lead to a name for your theory of improvement. It will help you get there. It will allow you to narrow your focus to high leverage areas. Again, let's not narrow too soon or too much, but it will help you drill down and think through some of the possible solutions that you've been thinking about. The driver diagram will show you where change can happen. It will help you test the working hypotheses you have, and it will create an illustration of how your improvement will work, how your improvement work will occur. So here's an example of a driver diagram. And this is sort of the template for one. So in this presentation, I'm not going to drill down into the images, but I do highly, highly recommend that you either revisit this video and pause or download the PDF of the presentation from the Canvas site and take some time to really immerse yourself in some of these images. You'll also notice that there's some text on the slides, little kind of thought bubbles or things that I'm highlighting on the side that I'm not verbally saying. So I do recommend that you take time and go through the PowerPoint again on your own time. So a driver diagram has three components. First is the aim, and then it has primary drivers and secondary drivers. The aim addresses the question of what are you trying to accomplish? It states precisely what the improvement is that you hope to achieve. It addresses the what or the goal, for whom and by when. So it also talks about or addresses the audience and provides a timeline. And it should reflect a narrowing of your work again. Drivers are the high leverage areas that play a role in influencing each aim. So each driver is influenced by smaller steps, broad categories that you can help get at your aim and are essential for progressing toward your aim. So again, not pausing to look at the diagram here. It is taken from the New York City Department of Education Chapter 2 that you are assigned to read. But again, pause, download the PowerPoint and look at these visuals. Drivers are, again, the high leverage areas. And then we have these secondary drivers here. So secondary drivers influence the primary drivers and can be the tangible opportunities for change. They affect your day-to-day work and can be implemented immediately or in the very near-term future. And they are small changes that can influence the primary drivers. Primary drivers are the what, so they address what needs to happen to get at the aim. What are the big things that can influence the aim? And the secondary drivers are the where. Where will you implement those changes, and where does the primary driver disintegrate in practice? And that will help you refine your driver diagram as well. So here is an example of a driver diagram. Again, it has the three components: the aim that addresses the question what you're trying to accomplish, the drivers are those high leverage areas, and then here are the change ideas. So the change ideas that address the secondary drivers that then get at the primary drivers. Those change ideas are tied to the secondary drivers. They are small enough to test immediately. They indicate a small tweak in how you do things on a daily basis. So they are not revolutionary school-wide changes. They are very small practices. And they're your entry point to your theory of improvement. So again, here is that template with everything laid out for you. And here is an example. So we have the aim there. You can see the primary drivers, there are several. You can see the secondary drivers, and some of them go to some of those secondary drivers, more than one, go to a primary driver. And then there are the change ideas. So again, on the left with the aim we have is kind of what we hope to achieve. And on the far right is those very small changes that we work through to actually get to that change. Here is another image. This is taken, it's a little bit blurry, sorry about that. It's taken from the book, The Improvement Science Dissertation and Practice. And it's almost exactly the same, just another visual for thinking about what a driver diagram looks like. And here is their example. Again, you still have the same primary aspects to the driver diagram: the aim, the primary drivers, secondary drivers, and the change ideas. It's a really good idea once you have a draft, even a very rough draft of your driver diagram, to put some of it into a sentence. So you won't put the entire image into this. You would be writing almost a dissertation in itself. But you would take one change idea, one secondary driver, one primary driver, and see how it links to the aim. So if you can fill in the sentence based on your driver diagram, you are probably on a good track. So these images are just a way to think about how to move from your aim down to your change ideas, or from your change ideas up to your aim. Again, pause, read this for yourself here. And if you need to think about where to start your driver diagrams, you can really kind of start anywhere, but usually the bottom or the top is helpful. Or try multiple ways. What does the literature tell you? What have your observations and experiences tell you? Again, you are a practitioner, researcher, so you come with experience and expertise. What do you already have that you bring to the table? If you start with your aim, once you have one driver, then you can drill down into secondary drivers for that primary driver and then into change ideas. If you start with possible solutions, you're starting with those change ideas. And once you have one, then you can map it onto your secondary driver, keeping in mind how it will address your aim. And try not to think about quick fixes. You don't want to be a quote unquote solutionist. But again, you can work through to develop your driver diagram in whatever way it helps you. So if you are having a difficult time identifying possible drivers, think about the students that you work with. Think about other students that you know in other aspects of your life. You can consider the user perspective. So who might be benefiting, what might be my audience. Consider what changes you would expect to see. And of course, you can always consult the research, the literature, outside experts, professional organizations, that sort of thing. You want to consider which change ideas will produce the greatest impact, the most immediate return, the most value by the institution, and the most excitement when you're working with it. Those were the recommendations based on the book, The Improvement Science Dissertation in Practice. I also added what will create or produce the greatest buy-in from stakeholders. And let's be honest, we always have to consider what might be most cost effective. I also want to talk a little bit about the feasibility, right? Those are things that you might not want to have to consider, but buy-in, finances, and feasibility are all part of this process, and quite frankly, part of your dissertation as well. So as you implement change ideas, process questions will emerge, right? For whom is the change idea working? Is it only working for certain subgroups of students? If so, why, right? How do you know that it's working? What are you measuring? What are you looking at? Who are you talking to? What are they thinking and feeling about the changes that you've implemented? And under what conditions is it working? Is it only working for your morning students, but not your afternoon? Is it really a terrible idea if you have a rainy day schedule? All of those kinds of things are not necessarily things that you must think about and consider and measure, but just something to, you might want to think about those questions to see if they are relevant or if you should put more time and energy into them. So as we are working through these driver diagrams, right, you should already have a general idea of your problem of practice. However, it is possible that some, many, or all of you think that you might need to revisit or refine your problem of practice. This is what I gave you a little bit of a sneak peek or a preview to. I just want to remind you that the name of the game is revision, revise, repeat, revisit, multiple iterations. It's all part of the process. And if you are not comfortable with that in terms of this program, I'm sorry, just get used to it. Find a way to get comfortable with it. But that is going to happen with your dissertations, your chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it's fine. It's part of the process, but it needs to happen, and it needs to happen, this summer. Let's get your problem of practice down. A problem of practice, again, is a persistent, contextualized, and specific issue embedded in the work of your professional work as a practitioner. It addresses what has the potential to result in an improved understanding, experience, and outcomes in your work. So if you are still vague or fuzzy on your problem of practice, or you know what you're interested in, but you don't know how to state it, just finish the sentence. My problem of practice is. So I wrote some examples from my actual professional work. My problem of practice is that too few first-year college students graduate within 4 years. And there are consequences to these problems or to my problem of practice, right? Which I will get to in the next slide. I have another problem of practice. My problem of practice is that the faculty and students do not seem to engage meaningfully in asynchronous online courses. I hope that's not the case for this course, but some colleges, some institutions, maybe some departments within institutions are having that problem. I'm sure that also occurred in some K through 12 settings. So another one of my problem of practice is that only 48% of students take 15 credits per term or more. And again, these are problems because they have consequences. So if too few students graduate college within 4 years, that is it can represent a barrier to them in terms of they might have higher student debt. They have delayed time to enter the workforce and therefore begin earning money, begin building towards retirement, affording the lifestyle that they have worked to achieve, right? Of course, there is also a lower reputation for the institution, and whereas in my work, that's not the primary driver of my work, that is, of course, a byproduct of having first-year college students take longer than 4 years to graduate. So again, my second problem of practice is about that meaningful engagement online. So limited engagement can result in lower grades, but I also know that there are solutions, right? There are tools, techniques, pedagogy, right, that can be implemented in classes, professional development that faculty can partake in, right? So there are solutions there. And my problem with practice is only 48% of students take 15 credits or more per term. That again can delay graduations. You can see those results or similar outcomes from my first problem of practice, but they also begin to start off behind schedule and they might not even know it, right? So full-time is 12 units, but on track to graduate in 4 years is 15, right? So there's some advising solutions that can be put in there. But if you need to refine or revisit your problem of practice, I really highly recommend that you just try to finish that statement. My problem of practice is. So if you are phrasing it as, maybe English language learners or emerging, English language students need more support, that's not actually a problem of practice. So the problem of practice is that they need more support. It's too vague. You need to really think more clearly, more closely about what is the problem. They need more support, like why, how, what, for whom, right? Okay, so think through that and write it down. Talk to it or talk it through with your partner, your dog, your classmate, your colleague, and see if it makes sense to them. See if they have any feedback for you. So I just wanted to, again, give you some examples of a focus problem area and how to turn it into a problem statement. Again, revisit, revise, reiterate on your fishbone diagram. That can help. If you hate it, you don't like it, you are already in a change, throw it out and start over. That's fine, but let's keep the momentum, keep the movement. Again, you've got a chapter 2 due at the end of summer. You've got other things to be working on. So let's try and get this honed down as much as we can. And here's a checklist to see if you are narrowing your problem focus area and getting to your problem of practice. And finally, just a reminder of what you need to be doing in June. I won't go over this in detail. Pause, look at everything that's visual in this presentation, and let me know if you have any questions. If you have not scheduled your one-on-one with me, do that. If my schedule fills up and I'm not available because you've only left me 2 days, that's not a good reason, and this does count for points for the class. Okay, make sure you're making that progress. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will meet again soon.